Yo, YouTube, and me. Right. Yo, how's it going? About to go stream right now. I think I'm gonna change the title of the topics for this week. And topic today is gonna be how to avoid trouble. There we go. Give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay. How to avoid trouble. Right. Um. Will this be difficult or easy? Let's be honest, it doesn't really matter. Just need to figure it out. All right. And open up the browser. Chrome. Okay. Right. These were the topics I was planning on doing this week. Although I think the how I title my videos, this wouldn't be the best way to. So instead of like just a random topic and it's just broad, it's like how to or why do, like more of a question, you know? So it's gonna be like an answer. You know what I mean? So like the video is the answer. Or like a question. Rather than just like having it too broad like this. You know what I mean? So yeah. Well, I'll try this out for a while and then I'll see what we can do after. Okay, let's go. Do I need to save this? I think I do. Which one is this? Okay, so it's gonna be how to. I'll delete this. Okay, we'll try this for a week. All right, how to avoid trouble. Right, how to avoid trouble. How we doing? Firstly, in order to be in trouble, you have to, I guess, break the rules or break a rule. But we'll have that there first. So break a rule. How do you get into trouble first? Then we know how to avoid it. All right, break a rule. Okay. By breaking a rule, like either purposefully. I don't know. I don't know if you guys can actually hear the noise that's happening upstairs. So I'm going to check. I'm gonna get a Twitch on my phone. 1 second. I'll be back again. Sorry about this. Wait, just give me a sec. That's calm. I've got on Twitch. Right. Right, that's fine. Okay. First, to get into trouble, you have to break a rule. Right? Break a rule, either you do it purposely or not on purpose. Right? These are the two ways. Okay? The two ways to break a rule, right? Another way to get into trouble is make a mistake. I mean, this might be the mistake, so. Is that the only way to get into trouble? Okay, wrong place, wrong time. Wrong place, wrong time. Another way would be someone lied on your name or something. Okay, so to get into trouble, these are the ways you can get into trouble, right? You can either break a rule, right? That's the easiest way, like purposefully or not on purpose. You can be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you find yourself in like some stuff you never like even considered possible, right? And then someone lies on your name, right? So you're wrongfully accused. I think I should use that. That's better. It's more, Okay. Wrongfully accused, right? These are the three ways. I would say this is the sort of the most popular way you just, break a rule, right? Wrong place, wrong time. Happens, you know. It's rare though. It's more rare. And the wrongfully accused, oof, this can happen. This can happen a good bit. So now that we know exactly how people get into trouble, okay. Now, how do you avoid this? How do you avoid like not just one but all of it? You can say, well, you can just not break a rule. Well, what if you didn't know about the rules and it's like it's not on purpose? Like you're still in trouble, right? Purposely, you can say you can just not, but sometimes like the rules are a bit too strict. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just, but you don't want the repercussions, right? I think the trouble here is more about the repercussions. Ugh. Okay, let me. Right. So. Okay. Right. Repercussions. Okay. That's the trouble here. It can be linked to that. Okay. Repercussions. So how to avoid trouble, right? You have to go into the repercussions. Okay. This is how you get into trouble, right? Now there's the initial should I say knowledge? The initial knowledge that you're in a pickle, right? How does that happen? Okay, so I'll say that as well. What? Initial. Right. So you just find out. This is also an annoying part of this, right? The minute you find out, you're in trouble. Oh, the minute you realize. moment of realization and repercussions, right? That's what happens when you get into trouble. First, you have the moment of realization, then you have the repercussion, right? Right? How to avoid trouble. Okay, you break this. Repercussion is what happens if you actually paid the full price, and this can be on a spectrum, right? So, from like minimal repercussions to like a lot, you know. So this is the least punishment. And then this is the most. Right? That's the least and the most. Okay, and this is the repercussions. Alright. The moment of realization is so after the act is done, I'll say that. After the act, like moment of what can I write for the moment of realization? Or is that even important in terms of getting out of trouble? The repercussions is what's important. Okay, I think it's the getting to this stage. Is the like, ooh, what's that word? Confrontation. Right? Is the confrontation at first. So I think that is it. So the confrontation. It's not moment of realization. When you're confronted about it. Right? Then when you're confronted is when you no. I think the moment of realization goes into the confrontation and stuff because it's first. Let's say you get into trouble. Let's say you did something wrong, right? And you recognize that this could land you in a lot of trouble. So that's the moment of realization. And then the confrontation can happen like hours or days later. You get what I mean? So I think the moment of realization is like part of it. Repercussion is still the first. Okay, so I'll put here. So confrontation. And I'll put moment of realization. Confrontation that can go into right. Resolving the conflict, right? Or you can go into increasing the penalty, right? So these are the two. What just happened? These are the two things that stems from trouble, right? The repercussions. The first one, I'll put number one here. The first one is the moment of realization. Second one is the repercussions. So these are in terms of like how trouble is, right? These are the two things. You realize you're going to, oh, should I put the act that happened? These are the three different acts that happened. Okay, I'll label this one as the act. I'll go. Right, this is the act. Okay, then that means I'll say this is number one. rub this off. Okay, this is number 2. And this is number 3. So the 3 things that happens when you get into trouble, before you get into trouble, right? You commit an act. Right? Act, then moment of cessation, and then repercussions. Oh my days, why do I keep saying spell like this? CUSSIONS. Okay. The act, the moment of realization, and the repercussions. So, when we talk about avoiding trouble, right, we don't just mean avoid the repercussions. We mean trying to avoid all of this and what exactly you should do to avoid all of these things that can lead to trouble, because they all are stages of leading to trouble. Maybe some things you can't avoid these two, or some parts of these two, or maybe you can avoid repercussions, or some things you can just genuinely just avoid the act, or make the possibility of doing that as little as possible. Okay, so all of these actually no. Consequences of the trouble. Right. All of that leads to this. To consequences of trouble. Okay? So, how to avoid trouble? Now, how do you avoid any of these? Now, the thinking starts. How do we avoid the act that could lead to consequences of trouble, right? The moment of realization of trouble. So when you're like, damn, screwed, how can you turn that into no problems, no issues? And also repercussions. If you get to this stage, okay, what happens? Are you screwed, or can you still do something to avoid it? You get me? Because I think this is trouble, right? This is like multiplied, and then this is like quadrupled, you know? So, right. Hmm. How do we avoid trouble? How do you avoid it? Making sure that nothing happens. That's okay. I think that's where we want to go. We want to go to, like, this is consequence of trouble. We want to make sure that nothing happens. Right. Okay. Do we want to make sure that nothing happens? Wait. Right. Is it that we want to make sure that nothing happens, or we want to make sure we just don't get into trouble in the first place? Right? Which part do we want to avoid? Do we want to do problematic stuff and just skip the repercussions, or do we just want to avoid it in general? Right? If these are the ways that lead up to trouble, or are some of them just unavoidable? You know what I mean? So, all right, some people, want to make sure that nothing happens. They want to still mess around but avoid the repercussions, right? Some people want to avoid that confrontation, you know, maybe do it, but just get away with even confronting the problem, whether that's with themselves or with the whoever, whatever party that they, you know, messed with. Okay. And what's the last one? One, two, the possibility of being. So basically, we have three different types of solutions, or three different types of okay, we have three different types of wants in terms of, or is it level of avoidance? Three different levels of avoidance. That's what we'll call them. Okay. So levels of right. Three different levels of avoidance. Okay. So what category of people? And let me actually name it. This is for the first one, right? Done. So the first one, second one, number three. Let's go back to this. For repercussions, there's levels of punishment, right? In terms of avoiding this, we can actually just reduce. We'll find out what the normal level is, right? What the general level is, like when people get into trouble. Okay, statistically, yeah, right? Where would people be when people get into trouble? Where would they be? Would it be more to the high end or the low end of repercussions, right? And then we can see how we can reduce it as much as possible, you know? And then for a moment of realization, okay, what type of confrontation happens? They want to avoid the even the need to not just apologize, but the need to calm the situation. Do we want to avoid that properly? I think it goes like this. To avoid this, you have to make sure you really work well in the act section. To avoid the repercussion section, you have to make sure you really work well in the moment of realization section. Okay? So it's a step-by-step thing, right? I think what you do in each part really determines the final result. So what we want, the final result that we want, the least of what we want is that nothing happens. But even if it does, at least we avoid the highest possible repercussion. So what we want is, okay, I think everybody wants this, right? But maybe some things you do, not everybody can get this. Okay, so you go to the next stage, right? And if you don't work well in this stage, then this is the danger zone. Okay, not getting this is what we all want. Not getting this is the danger zone. Now the trick is to reduce that repercussion as much as possible. So this is the higher end and this is the lower end. Okay, so tiny penalty. So this can be something like a fine, or like a don't do that again, or like a a telling off. Or it could be like repercussion could be like something crazy. I don't even want to think about it, you know, or highest repercussion. Highest penalty. You made the mistake, so you pay the price. You get what I'm saying? Let me know if you're following. Okay. So, how to avoid trouble. Basically, to avoid trouble, you need to understand that there are three parts to it. Right? Firstly is the act, the thing that initiates the confrontation, which is the next stage, right? When you realize that, oh, this has gotten you in trouble. Towards the next stage, after the confrontation, then the penalty. What is the outcome of this mistake that you've made? You know what I mean? What's the outcome of this act that you made? So it's three stages, right? And how you act in each stage, or even prior to this first stage, is what determines your ability to avoid trouble. Okay? That's what determines it. So, let's go for some examples. Right. In terms of breaking rules, right? In terms of breaking rules, don't do something that makes somebody else uncomfortable. Otherwise, you might get you know what I mean? You might get that confrontation you don't like. Or don't do something bad to someone. You never know. You might get that penalty you don't like. You get what I mean? If you are just a menace, right? What you'll be looking mostly for is sort of the final one, right? The ability to get away from what's it called? To get away from the repercussions, right? The penalty, the punishment. Like that's if you're a menace, okay? If you're just the type of person that just always are you just so unlucky, right? Then what you have to try and do is you have to get good at calming down the situation. So that's kind of what you have to do, right? If you're someone who just forgets and does stuff, breaks rules, like but not on purpose, then you just have to make sure you just get clued in. You know what I mean? And then if people lie on your name, I think these types of people, right? The ones where people lie on their names, I think, yeah. Also, you have to be able to like diffuse a confrontation, because if you don't know how to do that, it could actually escalate. You know, like somebody lied on your name that you did something bad to someone else, and they come and confront you. If you don't handle that properly, although you're not even the one at the wrong, you could bring up another issue that causes you more problems. So yeah, there's a way to act in all of them, and all of them has a specific character you have to have in order to avoid trouble. Let's go through each of them. Okay. Right. So there's four types of people. So the purposeful breaking of rules. That'll be the first category, right? So being a menace. The sort of like one that does it like but not on purpose, they just make so many mistakes. That's another one. Like what do we call these groups of people? The clumsy. Okay? We call this the menace, the clumsy, wrong place, wrong time. That's okay. I'll call this the menace. I'll call this the reckless. I'll call this the clumsy. Right? Menace, reckless, clumsy, and then what we call these types of people? Ooh, I think I don't know if I have a name. What can you call the wrongfully people that are just wrongfully accused all the time? The target, right? The target. Okay, so this is the menace, right? This is what I say was the reckless, the clumsy, and the target. Okay, let's write that down because there's a different way you have to act in each section. Okay. Right. The menace, the reckless, the clumsy, the targets. These are the people who get in trouble. There is nobody else who gets in trouble. Or is there? I don't know. But these are the ones I can come up with. Right? So the menace, right? The people that just I don't know. I don't know. They just like the beef. Right? Regardless, I don't care if you want like to avoid trouble, these are the only sections you can be in. Right? I'm not telling you like I'm not saying that oh you're always just going to get into trouble because of how you behave. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing no matter who you are, what section you belong to. I'm just telling you how you get out of trouble, right? I'm not discriminating, even for the menace, okay? Right? Obviously, I would advise for you to just stop being a menace, but some people, you know. So now then, hmm, how do we do this? How do we do this? So one thing I can say is that the menace, you are not avoiding the possibility of being in trouble. Even if you want it, you are not avoiding that. Okay. Maybe the only way you can avoid a possibility is if you're very, very, should I say cunning? If you're a very good escape artist. But I think the menace, they're loud, right? They're loud and they're with the way they do stuff, you know? So avoiding the possibility of being in trouble, that's not. But the menace, you can avoid confrontation. I don't want to tell you how, but you can. Okay? You can. You really can. I'm actually kind of double guessing if I if I should be doing this topic. But this is just, this is for educational purposes only. This is not for you to take it and apply it. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But anyways, okay. How would a menace avoid confrontation? Like you literally just like it's like the character you have is like you just want beef, but you don't want the outcome of beef. You know, that's the kind of character. So it's kind of like an oxymoron because like, what do you expect, right? So how does that type of person avoid confrontation? Well, I think you just have to be fast. You just have to be fast. Run faster than the amount of problems you're creating. That's the only way I could possibly think of. Run faster than the amount of problems you're creating, right? I think I probably should have went with the target first and worked my way up, or given them a score of how likely you are to get into trouble, so that we can work from like the easiest to sort of get out of, and then the hardest. Maybe let me give each of them a score. Okay, target, clumsy, reckless, menace. Which one is the least likely to get into trouble? Um. Oh, it's between target and clumsy. It's between target and clumsy. But I'll say clumsy is number one. You're just at the wrong place, wrong time. It's not really your fault. Like nothing is your fault. But the target also, you got light on your name, but that's one's kind of harder to prove. So it's like this would be number two. Reckless, you're just an idiot. You're just an idiot. So that would be number three. And then the menace is like you're asking for it. You're asking for it. So that's number four. So the clumsy person, that's number one. I think we'll go with that because the menace, I think I need to give that some time to really process. Okay. So the clumsy person, okay, you just find yourself in situations that are just peak. You're just like you're always having a bad day, right? You're just always having a bad day. You're in your restaurants, people come in, start yelling at each other, start fighting. You take up your phone, you start recording. Someone looks at you, and you're finished. To be honest, I think that's more reckless. Okay, let me remove that. That's not an example, right? Let's give another example. Let's set another scene. Okay. Um, you're going to you're going to a bank to take out your money. You know what I mean? You're just going there, and then some robbers come in. Says, "Yeah, this bank is gone. Pour the cash in there," and then they lock the bank down. You're held hostage, and that's just a whole mess. I think that's a very this is a very sort of like extreme example, but like you know what I mean? I can't think of a simpler example. Probably could, but I'm running out of time. Oh, actually, I have run out of time. So I think I need to get to a statement. But yeah, so clumsy is just like what you should do is just what should a clumsy person do? To just explain, like I think you should just try and explain your situation and really be good at communicating that listen, this is just like this kind of thing is just like it happens, okay? So what you should do, because you can't really control being clumsy, I think you should just increase your awareness, right? So that you can predict a terrible situation or you can like spot it before it happens. I'd say because if you really wanted to, right, you could probably remove that number one aspect, right? Just see situations before they escalate and leave, like leave the party early. Leave when tensions are rising, just leave, right? You have to be very vigilant. As a clumsy person, if you want to avoid trouble, you have to be very, very vigilant. You just have to be. That's just the way you have to be. Otherwise, you're gonna go to the second stage, right? Yeah, you're gonna have to go to the second stage and you're gonna have to confront someone. I think in this case, it'll be easier to like, you know, like say your part of the story and to let everything just dissipate, right? But if it gets up to the tree, then like it's I don't think it's like gonna be crazy. You're probably gonna be in the lower band of penalty anyway. So clumsy is okay. Now the target, the person that your name's always getting lied on. For some reason, you're just a target of lies, right? You have to be not a lawyer. You have to be very good at debating, right? That's what it is. You just have to be very good at arguing. If you're the target, you have to stand up for yourself because if you're a target and you don't know how to stand up for yourself, you're finished. You could even be going to number 3 straight away. So you have to be really, really good at talking back, right? Being able to, because you're always going to be on a 2. There's no 1. So far you're a target, there's no 1. You're going to be on a 2, right? You're going to be wanting to avoid confrontation because, wait, no, sorry. I think I'm having it wrong, right? You want to avoid confrontation, but no. You're going to be confronted. You're going to be, you know? Because it's not that something bad just happened. It's that something bad happened and the finger was pointed at you. So now that person is coming at you. Or that problem is making its way towards you. It's moving towards you. Right? So you just have to be really good at confronting that issue. So that's for the target. Now the reckless, oh my days. To be honest, these type of people, you're probably going to get a penalty. Probably going to get a penalty. How big, how small, depends on you, right? What you have to be good at I think what you have to be good at is bargaining. You have to be really good at bargaining. Like, look, listen, bro, I'm so sorry, but I'll do this for you. Listen, bro, I apologize. Like I didn't mean to, so I'll give you this instead. Look, take this. Don't do this to me. Like, please just be okay with this. You have to be really good at making someone feel better for what you did. Okay? Right? You have to be the caretaker. All right? Because otherwise, you can, if you're good at that, you can go from like the highest bound of penalty to like a lower one. You know what I mean? And then to be honest, I think, and I'm gonna rush through this. I think for the menace, you just have to be good at fighting. You have to be good at fighting. So if you're a menace and you're asking for it, I think you just have to be good at fighting. Otherwise, when you get that repercussion, you're gonna be messed up. So the menace, you have to be able to, you know what I mean, take on what you bring onto yourself, right? So clumsy people, you're trying to be vigilant, right? So you don't be clumsy anymore. People that are the target, right? You're gonna have to be really good at like arguing and making sure you sort of plead your case. Reckless people, just calm down. Don't be reckless. Just think twice about things you do before you do it. And the menace, I'll tell you to just stop being a menace. Stop being a menace. You know, it's just better for the world. But if you just operate in that way, that's just who you are, then the best thing I would say is to just get good at fighting. Just get good at fighting. So that's the way it goes. All right. Okay, let me write a final statement. Right. To avoid trouble, right, you must understand the ways in which it is possible to get into it first place. With an act, then then on the punishment. Okay, to avoid trouble, you must understand the ways in which it is possible to get into it in the first place. Right. To avoid trouble, you must understand the ways in which it is possible to get into it in the first place, committing an act, then having a confrontation, and the final verdict on the punishment. Okay. There are 3 types of people that get into trouble. 4. There are people get into the clumsy, target, reckless, the menace. The reckless. Now, who is the reckless? Reckless again. Now, the menace is the person who breaks rules. As a sport. Okay, so there are 4 types of people that get into trouble: the clumsy, wrong place, wrong time type person. The target, the person who is wrongfully accused. The reckless, one who breaks the rules out of ignorance. The menace, the person who breaks rules as a sport. Okay, each person wants to avoid all stages of getting into trouble. But unfortunately, this is impossible. Right? Avoiding trouble is on a case by case is determined on a case by case basis. Case by case basis. As follows. For the clumsy, right? You start off in over the act phase by doing what? reckless. The target. All right, now for the target, right? Right. These lot, what did these lot do? The target, what did they do? What did they do? What did they do? Okay, cool. Now, are these people able to avoid confrontation? Now, who's next? The reckless. Right. So what just happened? What just happened? Did I delete everything? Oh boy, no. Did I delete everything? I think I pressed the button. Yo. How can I delete everything? Yo. That is so crazy. That is so crazy. Honestly, for that one, I think I'm just gonna get the. I think I'm just gonna use the void. That is unfortunate. Oh my gosh. That is so unfortunate. Probably just gonna use the void after and just put on the Discord. But oh wow, that is actually so unfortunate. That is so unfortunate. I never finished it as well. You see, we're cooking, but that happens. I don't know what I pressed. I think I pressed Control or something. Control Shift. I don't know. It all just deleted. All that work. What I'll do is I'll go rewatch the VOD and then I'll finish that and put it on Discord, right? But that's annoying though because we're cooking. So, yeah, that's unfortunate, but it happens. Stuff like that happens. It's fine. Anyway, I'll just search up how to avoid trouble. It's probably gonna be very like, ooh, be this type of person. No, right? You can avoid trouble in different ways. So let's say how to avoid trouble. 10 habits to keep out of trouble. Right. Listen and act on your instincts. calm. Don't try to reason with unreasonable people. Okay. Have breakfast like a king and do lunch like a prince and eat dinner like a pauper. What? Make spiritual time a daily priority. Okay, very different routes than the route I took. I went with the type of person, and track your spending and be accountable for yourself. All right, get up early to find the extra time you long for. Make family a top. What is this? This is how to avoid trouble. What? How to stay out of trouble. Yep, I never trust anything like this. I don't care about vendors. Tip for how to stay out of trouble. Okay, think before you act. Yeah, this one I'll give this one to the reckless. Think before you act. Follow the rules. The menace. Listen. Follow the rules. Choose your friends wisely. Exactly, right? The target, make sure you do that. Choose your friends wisely. Communicate clearly, right? Stay busy. Stay busy. This one will be for the clumsy. Just stay busy. Learn from your mistakes. The reckless. Take care of yourself. All of them. You know? See? So, right? That is how you avoid trouble. And that's the end of this. Peace.